November 19th, 2024. The time is 4:30. I'm Margot Schaub, and I serve as the Library Commission Affairs Analyst. This meeting is being held in person in the main Library Crete Auditorium, and members of the public can observe the meeting using the Zoom system by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling 1-877-853-5247 and entering Zoom ID 898-0876-9607. Members of the public who are attending the meeting in person may provide public comment for up to 3 minutes for each discussion or action item on the agenda. Library commissioners in attendance are President Connie Wolf, Vice President Pete Wong, Commissioners Ono, Mall, Lomax-Garriduzzi, and Bolander.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the December 19th, 2024 meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. We are pleased to welcome those here in Crete, and we welcome our virtual audience over Zoom. We have a full meeting ahead, and we will start with the Ramaytush Ohlone land acknowledgement. The area now known as San Francisco is the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the original peoples of this land, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place. We recognize that we benefit from living, working, and learning on their traditional homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. If you have not already done so, all the materials for this meeting are available on the Library Commission webpage or in the back of the auditorium on the shelf back there. Here. So today we have a total of 7 agenda items, and we will begin with item number 1, which is general public comment. This is a time for the public attending the meeting here in Crete, where they may address the commission on items of interest that are within our subject matter's jurisdiction. You will have the opportunity to address specific agenda items when those items come up for discussion. So we now open public comment here in Crete Auditorium.
Good afternoon. Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Facebook prioritizes profits over safety. That's what Frances Haugen told the Senate 3 years ago. She was a whistleblower who had worked at a high position in Facebook and knew what she was talking about. There was also a series of articles in newspapers, including the Wall Street Journal, about her impressions and concerns. Facebook is toxic, especially for teenagers, and especially teenage girls, she said. Since that time, the Surgeon General has also talked about the danger to the mental health, particularly of teenagers, that social media present. Yet the library continues its uncritical touting of social media, including Facebook and the others, Instagram, formerly Twitter, now X, in its monthly at the library. And it had for years done that, provided the symbols of those platforms on much, if not all, of its publicity literature at library locations. We've been talking about that for 3 years, and yet you've excluded that consistently from the minutes. It appears there has been some progress. The paper publicity no longer seems to have the symbols of those platforms, but the monthly at the library still does, and has Get Social, and then gives where to go for presumably library information, but it is touting those platforms. I'd like to see some attention paid to the good information that's provided about public events and public activities and concerns at the library much more than now. Newspaper and magazine usage within the library, including book usage within the library, but especially those, are basically not measured at all for newspapers and not during the first period that the magazine is present. Not measuring means basically ignoring. I'd like to certainly see measurement, and I'd like to recommend some ways that folks can make, the library can make those things more visible and more accessible to the public, as well as popular books.
Thank you very much. Further public comment?
Hello, commissioners and library leaders. My name is Emily Garvey, and I am the Executive Director of Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. Happy holidays. The library is always a place of celebration, and this season we are reminded of how central it is to all of our community members. We are excited to share that we have completed our annual report at Friends for the 2023-24 year. This year it is inspired by San Francisco Public Library's own annual report. You can see them harmonized graphically here. And the messaging is, of course, that we at Friends are here to catalyze the amazing work of the San Francisco Public Library. And that is what we are doing this year through the mailing of our report with the libraries. As noted in our annual report this year, we had over 2,100 San Franciscans express their support and passion for the library through contributions to Friends in support of the library, which is a reflection of the strong and growing connection between the San Francisco community and our library system. Annual fundraising is in full swing at Friends. We have a few more weeks, obviously, before the end of the year to reach our goal. It's also been a festive season at Friends where we're celebrating our many communities. We had our volunteer appreciation party last week with record turnout. Over 40 of our stalwart volunteers came to the donation center and appreciated the celebration with staff and with one another. And the Pacifics, our Young Library Supporters Group, had one of their most successful events ever, a book swap holiday event last week at the North Beach branch with over 30 young library advocates in attendance. Lastly, we are thrilled to announce the launch of the SFPL store, which I am repping here. It's a long-awaited addition to our library activity and community in the city. We're starting with a limited but excellent selection of items, also being modeled today by Jess Parker and Michael Vincent. You can look forward to a great many more items being added to the store in the new year, but we are starting strong with these lovelies. Thank you, and have a lovely holiday.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment? Seeing no further public comment is now closed, and we will then move on to agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 2 is discussion and possible action to approve the November Commission meeting minutes. We will open public comment on this item before having it come to the Commission for discussion and possible action. So public comment is now open on the meeting minutes from November.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. The postal address is given particularly if folks want any kind of privacy with respect to their communication, which is not available typically on most emails. The minutes are seriously deficient with respect to what I have said and seem to be following the policy of the library, which is to, as little as possible, mention or even ignore anything that is critical of what the library is doing. So once again, in public comment, I talked about the toxicity as described by others, including the Surgeon General and Francis Haugen social media, including Facebook, completely omitted from your minutes. I actually also said that this was the third anniversary of her testimony at Congress. I also commented on a book stop. The presumably automated lending shelf or series of, well, bookcase, if you like. And I said that that was a pretty impoverished version of the library without even noting to people very clearly that this is part of a much larger and much richer library than just one bookcase. I had some other comments about that as well. And with respect to the minutes, I didn't say anything about suffocating what I say. I said there are specific things, including that you should not be touting uncritically social media, and for that matter, the internet in general. I mentioned again the toxicity of the social media as mentioned by Frances Haugen and others, and in particular the United States Surgeon General. I'd appreciate if you would include specifics about what I have said instead of making vague summaries that sound basically meaningless. They are not, it's not a summary to say you're suffocating what I have said. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment on the meeting minutes from November? Seeing no further public comment, public comments concluded, and I now turn this over to my fellow commissioners for any comments and to take action on approving the November meeting minutes. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as stated, as written.
Do I have a second?
I second.
So Commissioner Lomax Garducci has said a motion, and a second from Vice President Commissioner Pete Huang.
Okay, and I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Mall. Aye. Commissioner Lomax Garducci.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move on to agenda item number 3. This is going to be a discussion on the fiscal years 26 and 27 budget. And just to remind everybody, this starts our process. It almost feels like we just finished and we're starting all over again. But this is always a robust series of conversations over the next couple of months. And so we really look forward to starting this process again. So I turn this over to City Librarian Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf, and good evening, Library Commissioners. Every year around the holidays, we begin our budget deliberations, and this year is no exception. Our CFO, Mike Fernandez, is here to provide a preliminary overview and presentation of the FY 26-27 budget. Mike?
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate that. So good afternoon, President Wolf, Commissioners. Thank you again for this opportunity to present before you today. As Michael mentioned, I'm Mike Fernandez, the Chief Financial Officer here at San Francisco Public Library. And this evening, I'm going to review with you the budgeting process we use to fund our world-class service. We'll see how our new strategic plan is shaping this year's budget process. I'm going to provide you a brief overview of the budget environment and the mayor's instructions, and highlight at a high level what we intend to do for investments this cycle. We'll wrap by reviewing next steps in the process. Just as a reminder, we are early enough in the process that we still have quite a few unknowns that we're working through, and as always, we'll continue to refine our investments between now and our January discussion. So today, I think it's helpful to review the structure of the library's budgeting process before we're discussing the larger city context, just really so we can center our work and your role in the process. So over the past 4 years, first off, you can see the trend is really going upwards. Every year, we generally are increasing the budget from cycle to cycle. The vast majority of our budget really is in the space budget. What that really means is we are not creating a new budget from scratch every year. We are rolling our existing commitments from the prior year through the next 2 years of each cycle. These are things like the 2/3 of our budget that we typically spend on labor, the salary and benefits for our employees, what we anticipate to spend on our collections, which is typically around 12%, our fabulous programming, things like software licenses, contracts that we've entered into, and most of the services that are provided by other departments, and that's usually around 9%. Our revenue estimates come from the Controller's Budget Analysis Division, which, just as an aside, they have one of the best acronyms in the city. They're called BAD, which I'm personally a little jealous of. And what they do is they roll some of the cost centers, not all, and we use those to really build those into our base budget. And we stay engaged with BAD throughout the entire budget process. Now, from a technical perspective, you could say that at this point in the process, we now have what would be considered, whatever delta we have between our revenues and our base expenditures would be considered discretionary. However, they don't include everything. So when we're going through just so you know, when we're going through the budget proposal process, we're crafting those and reviewing those, we're really going through 2 exercises simultaneously. And the first exercise is, even though we have no crystal ball, we cannot predict the future, there are certain things that we know of, the Controller's Office really doesn't, like things that are already built into contracts. They could include capital, things we know that are coming on some of our capital projects. And those all get submitted as budget proposals. And then, as a second exercise, our staff, as you know, they put forward their best, most innovative ideas. They're working towards meeting our mission, our strategic priorities, our values. Often these are really in anticipation of, they're very good at that, or in response to our patron needs, or as a way of really for them to influence the direction the library is going. And then what we do is go through an iterative process, a review. We prioritize those, and we bring those to you every year, right? Every winter and late fall. And we package those for you. We build options for you. And so what we really bring before you is that base budget I mentioned. We'll itemize out those proposals for you. And we also wrap in all those increases in cost of doing business that I identified in that as part of that first exercise. And I will also note here that in the past, we have, if ever there's a big change in the cost of doing business, we generally present that to you as an itemized option just for enhanced visibility, even if we don't really have a lot of control over it. And in your review, as you consider these options, you can request additional information to inform your decisions and approve the base budget along with all the increases through the budget proposals or those costs of doing business every year. So that's a rough overview of kind of how we do budgeting here within the library. I am very happy to report that this year our budget proposal, our budget process is really being guided by this new Vision 2030. I can tell you, having gone through the budget proposals, that this is already having a pretty strong impact in what we're seeing and the ideas that are coming forward, so I'm sure you're happy to hear that. And we take these as well as the mayor, we take all these ideas and we use this as a guiding principle along with the mayor's priorities as we build our budget. The other thing we consider every year while we're building our budget is really the Library Preservation Fund, which, as you know, is the bulk of our funding. We have to balance, our strategic priorities and our vision, the mayor's priorities, and while the Library Preservation Fund did come with a string, it does have this mandate attached to it. So we balance those 3 in what we bring to you every year. And here's hopefully what's pretty familiar to you now, the budget calendar. This is the same calendar we see every cycle, pretty much. We're here at the beginning of the process. This is the first of the 3 budget discussions we're going to have. And we're going to be requesting your approval in the 3rd session. We will be updating the budget information I'm going to start sharing with you here in December, in January, and that's really for that February approval. some background. And now for this larger city context. As the city has done for many years, we do a rolling 2-year budget process, which means every cycle we approve 2 years. And that means every cycle we get a chance to revise what we approved in the prior one is year 2, which is now year 1. And that's really the bulk of what we're changing typically in each cycle. This year is a little bit of a change. We got the mayor's instructions early, which is nice. We usually get them, I think last year I was looking back at my notes, we got the instructions the day before this presentation. This time we got it on the 3rd, which is great. The mayor's priorities have not changed a whole bunch. Her priorities are to maintain core city services, including public safety and clean streets, continue the significant progress, decreasing unsheltered homeless, ensuring effective mental health treatment, proposing opportunities to improve operational efficiency and service delivery and reporting across all areas of city services. Part of the reason why I suspect we got those instructions early is that they weren't necessarily giving us great news. In fact, the general fund departments were required to reduce their budgets by 15% this year, which is a very large cut, I can tell you. Also, they were required to make all those cuts ongoing. No revenue, no one time were to be considered within that 15%, which is a pretty large cut. No surprise then that they are also requesting that we do not add any positions this cycle. At least no new net FTEs or full-time equivalents. Fortunately, we are a non-general fund department in this respect, and so we really just have to continue to balance our budget to our own revenues. They did announce one other restriction, which is restricting employee travel, which you may hear about or may have, I don't know if it's been reported really widely, but the travel has been widely seen as somewhat discretionary, and so they're asking departments to cut out any unnecessary travel and being pretty strict about what we can travel for. The other bit of news is every year we basically bounce back, or every 2 years we bounce back and forth. Sometimes we get presented in May with all the other enterprise departments in the city, and this year we're going to be in June with everybody else, so all budgets will be heard at once this year. It's that point in the cycle. And just to note, things like other department work orders are still not set yet, so we're going to be working on those, the ones that we have control over. Some we don't. We call those centrally loaded. These are things like our bills, so utility bills, internet, all those sort of things. We don't really get to negotiate those. We get told how much they cost, and those get centrally loaded. And as well as we go through a capital budgeting process, so that process is also ongoing. So that we don't, at this time in the process, we don't quite know how exactly that will shake out. We like to always remind you what we approved last year. So this was what was year 2 last time is now year 1. So on the right, you can see our budget laid out by the type of budget. So on the right and the left-hand side, we can see it broken out by division. On the right-hand side, you can see that labor is, of course, our biggest investment. I never get tired of saying it, but people really are the heart of the library. And what you see here is the labor cost is both their salary and fringe combined. So this is the total cost. When possible, we do like to set aside a small reserve contribution in every cycle. And we use this really as a source to fund any new ideas for budget proposals. And we always revisit that. And the reason why we do that is we always get a chance, again, to revisit year 2 as year 1 as we go through. So how does the revenue look? First, I will mention that the Library Preservation Fund is the primary source in our budget of revenue and really is driving and setting those parameters of how much we get to spend every year. The Preservation Fund is a combination of both general fund and property tax. And those two combined are that blue line you see at the top there is how much Library Preservation Fund total we have every single year. And what you can see is that LPF revenues are growing, albeit quite slowly. So we are down to just under 1% in each of the next 2 years. And that, in case you're wondering if you're remembering correctly, yes, this is less than what we talked about last year when we were anticipating roughly 2% growth, or maybe 2.5% growth for this year. However, as you can see, there's a little bit of a light at the end of that tunnel. You can see in '28, we are expecting the revenues to come back up to a 3% growth target. But this flattening that you see really is in line with kind of, I'm sorry if this sounds like a broken record, but this is what I've been telling you for since my time here, really, that we've been having pretty flattening revenue picture. So while the Library Preservation Fund is the vast majority of our revenue, you'll see that we actually get around $500,000 in other revenue. These are things like gifts, fees, that sort of thing. But in the overall picture of our budget, it's not a huge piece. So really, what does this revenue picture mean for our budget, particularly our base budget, right? The things that we just have rolled forward, that we don't have necessarily a lot of control over. Well, the good news, in a sense, is we did, last cycle, anticipate a lot of this inflationary pressure already on the expenditure side. So what's in fiscal year 26 is not too much of a surprise. This is right around what we had expected it to be. What we did not expect is really a $2.3 million revision downward in our projected revenue for fiscal year 26. We also are now being able to foresee there's some rising construction costs that we're looking at having to deal with. Those amount to about $7 million in fiscal year 26. As in 27 and 28 and going forward, we are projecting, of course, for our labor costs and our material costs to increase at roughly about 2.5%. That is less than what we were kind of worried about coming in, which is closer to 3%. So that is the good news. However, that's, of course, now just going to depend on the economy. We really don't know what's going to happen with inflation. That could change. But that's what they're predicting as of now. Another major cost that we're having to deal with is our friends at Microsoft, who decided to reclassify libraries from educational institutions to nonprofits. That may seem esoteric or kind of trivial, but it's not. It actually means they get to charge us $400,000 more for the licenses to serve the public. So we're having to build that into fiscal year 26 as well and going forward. Yeah, it's unfortunate. And it really means, so what does this all mean? This really means that we're going to have to be pretty judicious with our budget. But is this that doom loop, this doom loop that people have been talking about in the news for San Francisco? The message from the mayor's office and from what we're seeing is no, we are not in a recession. Our revenues are going up, so we're not in a recession by any means. But it does mean that, as has been in the recent past, our revenues just are not keeping pace with our expenditures. So what that means is we're going to be confronting a lot of trade-offs. Kind of one of the places we always will look that is logical to look is around capital. Capital projects, however, have this unfortunate nature of the more you delay them, the more expensive they get and tend to be a little bit faster than inflation, especially in recent years. And that doesn't seem to really change. That said, looking at our total picture, that may still make sense for us, depending on how we're looking out kind of more in the medium and long term. So we're still sorting through that, and we'll bring you a lot more details on that in January. This also means that we have an opportunity now with the strategic plan to do things in a slightly different way than maybe we have done in the past. Often when we talk about strategic investments and how are we going to meet this new mission and vision, we're talking about adding just to what we do, keep doing what we're doing, and just add to it. However, this year, given those options are a little bit more limited, that may not always be possible. That said, we are deeply invested in our staff, and we all believe in our shared ability to really deliver on this, again, shared vision, but while being mindful of the resources that we actually have at our disposal. That's because of the changing revenue picture. Really, I will be bringing a lot more specifics to you next month on what this all will really look like, and as we continue to refine those budget proposals. So next steps. So the Controller's Office is going to update the base revenue and expenditure numbers for us, and we'll be going through those with a fine-tooth comb. We're going to continue to refine those budget proposals, as I just mentioned, and we're going to be bringing back those refined proposals for you to consider, start reviewing in January for your consideration. And in February, again, as previously mentioned, is when we'll bring the ideas together for approval, and we'll submit that as our budget to the Controller and the Mayor's Office. And with that, I'm here for questions, which I know you'll have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. That was really terrific. It's nice. You've really come into your job in a really wonderful way, so thank you. Before opening this up for discussion at the commission level, we will open this up for public discussion. So public comment on the fiscal years 26 and 27 budget is now open for public comment.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association. Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Thank you very much for the early overview of the budget. What I'd like to say is, and I'd certainly like to hear in the discussion, a lot more specifics about the expenditures the library plans on doing, and in particular, to speak with concerns for what's typically been blurred. One thing that's been blurred is electronic books versus what I would call electronic texts versus print. The budget has been about even on those two, with books generally being very, very robust in their circulation and in preferences by people. Unfortunately, the former goal of the library to provide free and equal access, it's not free if you don't have the gear for the electronic material. And the library does not provide you with a Kindle or a take-home computer. Only a very limited selection of ebooks are available if you get online during your maximum of 1 or 2 hours a day to read those ones that can be read on the library's website, using the library's website, and not having gear at home and all that entails, the hardware and the software to be able to look at ebooks. Number two, we talk about access. That's a key element of library service for the public. It's become very clear to me as I look for current books or recent books that there's a huge demand for quite a lot of those. And so there ends up a long waiting list for the few that are available at the library in print. Sometimes they aren't even available in print, while the e-materials are much more available. There may be a waiting list for quite a few titles, and what's happening with ebooks, they are readily available. I think that the library should take that into consideration in terms of free and equal access. And in particular, I think that when there is high demand for material, there ought to be something like what colleges have, which is a 2-hour limit, or a room where nothing circulates, so that people could just have a look. A book that I recently wanted was already 60 people waiting for one copy. And I think when that happens, that ought to go some way where people...
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any further public comment?
Thank you, Margot. We just want to say what a wonderful presentation, really informative. I just had some questions, so I don't know if this is more of a comment, but just questions. And part of me was thinking, should I just call you? So sitting back there, I was struck by they're charging us $400,000. basically $500,000 to use their product, and I didn't know what, do we have any recourse, or is that just how the market's set, and that's just what we have to deal with? I don't know. But that was something that struck me when you were speaking. You were mentioning about the capital projects, more delay, more cost. So my question around that was, is that just something which you were saying earlier, so I don't know if I should go this way or this way, is that those are just one of the trade-offs that you were speaking about? Is that kind of the idea that, okay, gotcha. And then the other part was you were speaking about last cycle we anticipated inflationary pressures. I just wanted to know if you could speak to that, just generally what that means and how that works. Because I'm more of a layman. I don't know exactly how that sort of plays out. So those are my questions, comments. Thank you, Margot.
Further public comment? Seeing there's no further public comment on item number 3 regarding the budget, public comment is now completed, and we will now turn it over to the commission for comments and discussion. So Mike, yes, you definitely should stand up. But I also know that this is a general discussion versus next month is going to really get into the details. So let's try, so talking about things like the 400,000 here or the 200,000 there, I think we'll get really into those details next month.
Correct.
But this is a great opportunity to really get a little bit more illumination from your perspectives of what's happening and what some opportunities are. But I just want to thank you again for the overview. It was really helpful. And I think really the issue that I see that we are all facing here is the flattening revenue with the increased costs. And some of those costs, like staffing and benefits and other service departments, are beyond our control, that we just don't have any recourse with that. So that really, I think, is the biggest challenge I think every department's facing, but at least we don't have the 15% mandated. Thank goodness for the Library Preservation Fund, the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library, and their efforts to make sure that we have that for our citizens, which in this year ahead will be the services we offer will be so instrumental. So I turn it over, and I will start with Commissioner Mall.
Thank you very much. In that we have a new administration coming in,
Yeah.
how does that figure into your calculations? Do you take that into account that the new mayor might have different priorities? How does that work?
That's a very good question.
sorry.
It is a little bit, it is basically a time of transition right now. So
Right.
we have a lot of this, I think this cycle is pretty unique. The last couple years where it was a lot more settled, we had a pretty clear picture of what was happening. We have a new local administration, we have a new federal administration. All of those are changing.
I wasn't even going.
No, I know, but
even
just
going there.
just for the budget context, because while the city doesn't get a ton of federal revenue, it is not insignificant, and that impacts the general fund, which is half of the Library Preservation Fund.
How much does the city get from the federal government?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, and I know it changes. It changes over time. It also depends on like how you look at it a little bit, because some of those are kind of long-term monies that you may not realize all in one year. There could be pledges that don't all come in. It gets a little bit very complicated. I shouldn't say a little bit. It gets very complicated. But with all that said, we do have instructions from the current mayor, and those are the priorities we are charged with following. We do our best to anticipate. What the current mayor's team is able to tell us is that the instructions that they gave us were not worked in a vacuum. They were working together as a team.
Okay.
And so we don't necessarily anticipate a drastic change from those priorities. That said, once the new administration's in place, they can certainly give us new instructions and new priorities.
So it wouldn't make sense for you to be doing all this work after the new mayor is, it's only a few weeks, really.
Correct.
That was sort of a real question.
Yeah, and And what we're anticipating at this point, again, is not much change from the direction we've been given. Also, you know, if it helps, the controller's office, especially that bad team, they have a pretty strong role in kind of what the revenue pictures look like and really what we're gonna get as far as that goes. And we always anticipate, you know, working well with whatever administration. So we are always thinking forward in that way. We're always doing our best to anticipate those eventualities. We go through this phase of the budget, which we also, on a technical side, we call it the department phase. There's 2 more phases after this. So there's the mayor's phase and then the board phase. And so we know that there's going to be changes during those 2 phases as well. And so we are planning for those at all times, and we're working through those. We're cognizant of that as we're building the budget proposals that we bring before you.
Good. So
Yeah.
this is sort of a general question, and I know you can't definitively answer it, but is the city prepared, is the whole city prepared that federal funding might change drastically going forward?
I can't speak for the whole city, of course. I work for the library.
Speak right into the microphone. And
Yeah, I cannot speak
Please
for the
state your
city.
name for the record.
Yeah.
Right.
I
But
cannot
I mean,
speak-
are people talking about this?
Yes, but they
That's
are
my
absolutely
question.
talking about, yes, the folks in the controller's office especially, and the treasurer's office, treasurer and tax collector's office, they are always monitoring that situation. So yeah, they are definitely thinking about it. They've communicated as much to us, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bolander.
Thank you very much for the presentation, as usual. I would like you to talk a little bit about inflation, where we see that going. I know last budget cycle, we anticipated huge spikes, but it's nice that it's sort of in control. And if there has been any, thoughts at the city level, like how that's going to play out, because it's been whipsawing all over the place. And as we know, inflation directly affects people trying to, buy food and stuff like that. So if you could comment a little bit on that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I'll try to answer your question. So yeah, we look at inflation through a couple lenses, right? So one of the things we look at is, the costs that we're going to incur. So we, break those down into segments. We think of inflation in construction versus technology versus, other goods, as well as, especially for us, literary books, and given, the way we import those and those sort of things, we're looking at those different cost changes as we go and those separately. We are thinking about those, but as you, I think, adroitly pointed out, we are thinking about what that means for the people we serve, right? And so trying to anticipate their needs and how they're going to want to use the library in the future, I think, was a huge part of the visioning process we went through to develop Vision 2030. And so as we're thinking about that, we're thinking within those budget proposals that we've been receiving, just really trying to anticipate, what this might mean for folks and how we can be in a position to best respond. Given that, of course, the future's uncertain, we don't want to be super rigid and very prescriptive in that approach, but building in enough resources to be flexible. And, I think that was the approach we took last cycle as well. The options that we brought before you last time had built in a lot of flexibility, and so I think we're definitely going to be leveraging those going forward.
And what has the mayor's office given you, or the economic folks, about guidance on that? What are the numbers? I know last time it was somewhere around 3.5%, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that has come down,
Okay.
and one of the places you'll see it, and I think there was a recent press release, I want to say a day or two ago about it, is we have for our contracts with nonprofit organizations, the amount of pay they're required to pay folks as a floor is set forth in the minimum compensation ordinance. And there they just revised that one downward to about 2.4% from 3.1.
From 3.1?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we get the details next time, I'm assuming you'll have some options for, best case, worst case,
Yes.
How it's, and hopefully, we will not have, when's the inauguration? we won't have any, that's the 20th, right?
Yeah.
For here. They all blur to me, but January 8th. Okay, so you'll have like 10 days to figure out what the next level will be. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're very welcome.
I have a question. Can you turn to page 17, please? I just wanted a little clarity on looking at fiscal year 25 estimated and fiscal year 26 projected, and the delta of, $4 million difference between the revenue and the budget costs, and how does that play out? I mean, how
How do we
are you
square that circle?
reconciling? I mean, fiscal year 25 estimated, we're in it, right?
Yep.
So that's what we're anticipating, so it's like we're running a deficit. And then for fiscal year 26, from what you're defining as base budget, it means that we're going to automatically assume a deficit.
That's correct. And so what we do to fund that delta essentially is we have accumulated, some fund balance over the years.
Yeah.
And we use that primarily as our primary source for covering that gap.
And what is our fund balance at this point? That isn't designated for mission renovation or Chinatown rent or Ocean, like, hasn't been designated.
And hasn't otherwise been committed. I would have to get back to you on that number. I don't have that at the tip of my fingers, but we can talk about it more in January as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that pretty much means that if we're starting the year with a projected deficit of $4 million. So all these proposals that staff are bringing in, there's not a lot of discretionary funds in there.
That's correct.
Okay, so we're not going to have the same kind of like pick 3 from column A, 2 from column B, and 5 from column C. It's going to be a little different this year because of this deficit, correct?
Correct. It'll be different. I would probably maybe frame it slightly differently. I think it will be different in the sense that we won't have that same opportunities just add to the budget. What the options may look like, though, are various trade-offs. So where we think we can do things within our budget, but just in a different direction than maybe we had been doing previously, where we're shifting our focus, I think that's what I would anticipate more in January.
Okay.
And so I would still fully anticipate giving you guys options.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to, I don't want to make it seem like you're not going to get options.
But it seems to me that this is a kind of a call to the staff to say, okay, you don't get a lot more, there's not a lot of discretionary new funds.
Correct.
How can you reapply and repurpose the funds that you have as part of the base budget to meet the goals of the strategic plan? Because that really is going to require a lot of movement and finagling without increasing the deficit.
Exactly.
Okay. Great. Okay, thank you. That was helpful. Any further comments? Vice President Huang.
Just wanted to say thank you for providing so much context in this presentation. I think it was very helpful just to kind of step back and look at the picture before we dive into all the things that we usually dive into. So I feel very properly oriented kind of going to the next few months. So I appreciate how you approached the presentation this time.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great, and I repeat that. I want to reiterate that. Did you want to say something? Yes.
I was just thinking, because of the overall cuts for the general fund, and just kind of where the expenses are more, I think one of the things we have to think about is how this impacts the culture of the library generally, meaning that if we have a culture where people are used to adding on new programs, knowing that is always what we've done for a number of years. I think that part of what we may need to do is try to acculturate people to what that means. If you've always been in a growth pattern and it looked a certain way, because you're still growing with the strategic plan, but it might be looking differently. And so just be thinking about the cultural pieces that go along with that as well.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was great. I think that's what I was trying to get. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, like, wait a minute, we don't get to just keep we actually have to take what we have and rethink it. And I think the timing is really great with the new mayor coming in and the new administration. It just is calling for a kind of refreshing look and new perspectives of this. But I also just want to say that as much as the government of the city is challenged and worried and, will the federal funding come in and at what level and all these issues, it also means the citizens of the city also have a lot of challenges ahead and a lot of unknowns in terms of what tariffs and taxes and all those things may play. So I do really believe that the library is more important than ever because it is a stable resource of free opportunities for our community. So I don't ever want to lose sight of, even though we may have to trim here and there and have a little bit of struggle, we have to always be mindful that we are an incredible tool and resource for our citizens. And that's really exciting to know how valuable we are.
Yes.
So I want to thank you for all of this, and January is going to be fun. Thank you again, Mike. Really appreciate all of your help and guidance on this.
Thank you all.
Okay, so now we will turn to item number 4, which is the City Librarian's Report. Just want to say this is always such a highlight of the meeting, and this is December. This is the last City Librarian's Report for 2024, and just want to thank the City Librarian for always presenting such extraordinary new ways of seeing that we don't get to see everything, and this is a way to kind of reveal it all. So thank you.
Thank you, President Wolf. Happy holidays. We made it. We're here, the last City Librarian's Report of the year. We have a couple of reports lined up. I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter, Alejandro Gallegos. He is our Community Engagement Manager, and this evening he will be presenting about First Person, our annual celebration of Native and Indigenous peoples. Alejandro.
Thank you. Good to see you all. Thank you for inviting us to provide some programming highlights for First Person, our Native American Heritage Celebration. We host First Person programs at all of our locations extensively during the month of November, but also throughout the year. We'll start with some highlights from youth programming. We're thrilled to showcase the artwork of fine art painter and muralist Felicia Gabaldon for this year's First Person campaign. She's an American Indian artist of the Choctaw tribe, originally from Santa Fe, now residing in Oakland. As you've hopefully now seen, her artwork is on bookmarks, posters, and other publicity for this celebration. Families at the main library will have a special opportunity to meet and paint with her, where Felicia will show examples of her work and inspiration. Participants will take home a unique painting of their own using her images as inspiration. That's coming up in February. At Golden Gate Valley Branch and Sunset Branch, youth and their families will learn past and present Ohlone knowledge from the Ohlone sisters, Carla Marie and Desiree Munoz. The Ohlone sisters are tribal members of the Costanoan Rumsen Carmel tribe and will share songs, storytelling, regalia, language, and special relationships from Ohlone culture. Oh, that one just happened. Alicia Retes. We began partnering with Alicia Retes of Mayo Heritage a couple of years ago. We continue celebrating Retes's creativity and storytelling skills at 5 library locations, 2 of them still upcoming, with a retelling of the legend of the 3 sisters, corn, bean, and squash. The Plant Sisters engage the audience to share their dreams, trials and tribulations of independence, respect, cooperation, and community service. As an honor to the Coast Miwok of Marin, audiences will learn how Coyote brought music to the people and learn how to play traditional elderberry clapper stick rattles. Intergenerational events. Vincent Medina, East Bay Ohlone, and Luis Trevino, Rumson Ohlone, are the co-founders of Café Ohlone and focused on sustaining traditional Ohlone culture. As leaders in the ongoing restoration of their languages, they are proud of their indigenous identities. Library users joined Medina and Trevino to hear about the role of food in Ohlone culture past and present. A light snack and tea tasting were provided. Sorry. At Mission Bay in Richmond Branch, we listened to music and tales from Paul Stewart, a tribal member of Elem Indian Colony of Pomo Indians of the Sulphur Bank Rancheria. He's a lecturer of Native American/American Indian Studies for CSU. Professor Stewart specializes in the history of California and the local history and culture of the Bay Area. If any of you up here or staff out here recognize Mr. Stewart, it may be because he gave staff a presentation on the Ramaytush Ohlone, sponsored by the Racial Equity Committee and the Stegner Environmental Center. You might remember that. We're proud to introduce an intergenerational event with new partners, Asociación Mayab. This is an organization based here in San Francisco that provides Maya immigrant families with social services and emergency support and celebrates Mayan culture and values. Moving on to some other adult programming highlights. You might remember Jonathan Cordero, who works as a consultant in the public and private sectors, a speaker and activist in the broader Ohlone and Chumash communities. Here at the main library, Dr. Cordero will give a short presentation on the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone efforts to reclaim and restore land here in the city of San Francisco. The library also offers various hands-on crafts programs. Kalori Roanhorse, an expert in Native American beading, teaches the basics of jewelry design and beading, which has proven to be a popular program at many of our locations. Other craft highlights this year were Navajo sand painting and Huichol yarn painting at Noe Valley. We had a Native American poetry celebration hosted by Poet Laureate Emerita Kim Shuck, a wonderful library supporter. Special guests invited to participate included Native poets Linda Noel, Mona Webb, and Paul Corman Roberts. Also, you've probably read a lot of these, or maybe all of them. Several of our locations conducted first-person themed book clubs with books by Louise Erdrich, Tommy Orange, and Billy Ray Belcourt. So I hope all of you were able to make it to some of our first-person programming, and a reminder and invitation that a few programs are still upcoming. I want to remember to thank the Friends of the Library, and I hope this is a small indication of all the work that our staff put in organizing, coordinating all of these programs. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Alejandro. And now I'm pleased to introduce our next presenter, our closer for 2024, Anissa Milady. She is the fourth floor manager here at the main library. Previously, she served as our adult engagement coordinator for the Community Programs and Partnerships Division, and she was recently promoted. Congratulations, Anissa. And she's going to talk about our fall One City, One Book program.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, library leaders. Really happy to be here today presenting on our 19th One City, One Book campaign special edition. This year's One City, One Book is a little bittersweet, as Michael mentioned. This is my final campaign with the Community Program and Partnerships Department, and I want to express my gratitude to my colleagues, Michelle Jeffers and Alejandro Gallegos, for their guidance and trust that allowed me to bring these campaigns to life. Jamie Wong and Ellen Riley, who have been integral to the core team that makes this library initiative thrive. And of course, to the Friends of the Library who support and ensure these programs and events are possible. Reflecting on these incredible stories and voices we've celebrated through my time doing the One City, One Book, from Tommy Orange, They're There, Chanel Miller, Know My Name, Ear Hustle, Catherine Ma, and now Maya Angelou. I'm deeply proud of what we achieved together. So, as you might remember, we did just do a One City, One Book with Catherine Ma, which was same event, same big literary campaign. So we knew we wanted to do something amazing when we heard that the Lava Thomas sculpture would be landing on our doorstep, and I know you've all seen it. It's just amazing and beautiful and glows when you walk up to it. So we wanted to align something with that. Quickly after concluding Catherine Ma, Michelle and I said, let's just do it again. We created the special edition 19th One City, One Book, celebrating the work and SF connections of Dr. Maya Angelou. Being this is our first posthumous author that we have done this with, we knew the book and the event had to be special and that Lava Thomas had to be at the core of the campaign. We aligned the announcement of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings as the 19th citywide read with the unveiling of Thomas's monument, Portrait of a Phenomenal Woman, on September 19th. On that day, we handed out 500 copies of Caged Bird and hundreds of other titles from Angelou's collection. People were super thankful and appreciative. It was really a magical day out there. The event had well over 700 attendees, and this was a partnership with the SF Arts Commission. Our main event was a discussion of women in public art and, of course, featured Lava. As San Francisco works to increase its representation of women in public art, artists Lava Thompson, Mildred Howard, and Cheryl Dericote are major players in Bay Area public art. The panel was moderated by KQED arts writer Sarah Hotchkiss, and the discussion highlighted the unveiling of Lava Thomas's Maya Angelou, Portrait of a Phenomenal Woman, on the main stairs. Along with public art created by legendary Mildred Howard and the work of newer formidable artist Cheryl Dericote, the panel explored the challenges of creating public art in a city where women's voices were and are still underrepresented. The artists shared their experiences and powerful contributions to the Bay Area's public art scene. A full house attended the event, reflecting the strong interest in this important conversation. And at this event, our panelist, Mildred Howard, pronounced on stage that she was thankful for us for hosting this panel of Black women, not during Black History Month. So shout out to us doing programming all year round for all people. Shauna Sherman from the African American Center hosted a panel around Black theater movement. This panel was a reunion of 90s Bay Area Black theater who discussed how the 1960s and 70s Black arts movement revolutionized San Francisco theater and influenced onward and currently. Accompanying the panel, there was an exhibit called Black Theater Go Home. It was curated by Kaveen Legrone and was on exhibit at the African American Center. Panelists included Marvin X, Rodessa Jones, Thomas Robert Simpson, Dr. Mwanza Faraha, and I.J. Atonis Marquise, who are influential figures in Black theater and performance art. This well-attended event was engaging and powerful, a conversation about the legacy and future of Black theater in San Francisco. We love our partnerships, we do. So, SF History Center and the Tenderloin Museum partnered to present a screening of The Rainbow in the Clouds, highlighting Dr. Angelou's connection to Glide Memorial Church. This 1992 PBS documentary showcased Glide's activism, Sunday celebrations, and programs in the Tenderloin. Dr. Angelou, who was interviewed interviewed Reverend Cecil Williams and Janice Mirikatani and community members. Marvin K. White, Glide's Minister of Celebration, introduced the film, gave an invocation, and led a group reflection. There is a related exhibit still happening on our 6th floor Soroyan Gallery called Dear Sister Maya, and this is all about Maya's connection to Glide. So please go check that out. Still on exhibit through February 16th. Visitors noted in the guest book how inspiring Dr. Angelo and praised Glide's impactful work in the Tenderloin. This event was amazing, an extravaganza, and an all-out celebration of the voice and verse of Maya Angelou. An unforgettable event that honored the indelible legacy of Dr. Angelou with history, poetry, music, and reflection, featuring renowned Bay Area creatives. The program captured the powerful impact of Maya Angelou. It was opened up by public historian and retired Oakland Public Librarian Dorothy Lazard, who shared a historical perspective on Angelou's influence. Bay Area artists performed readings from I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, along with original works. A large audience turned out for this one-of-a-kind event. Featured performers were award-winning renowned poets, storytellers, activists, and musicians, Avacha, Tarita Mikkel, Darius Simpson, and Raymond Nat Turner. And a big shout out to our media services team who did an amazing job where there was lots of pieces, moving parts to this event. And the SF History Center back for another one, hosting a Rediscovering San Francisco Public Art in the Redevelopment Era. This panel was a group of people preserving community heritage amid cultural and urban changes. The panel explored art initiatives born from redevelopment and urban renewal projects, including the San Francisco Redevelopment Project Artwork Inventory, BART Art Program, and Market Street Cultural Landscape. It featured panelist Hannah Simpson from Page and Turnbull, a historic preservation, architecture, and planning conservation firm, Allison Cummings from the SF Arts Commission, John Rush from Architectural Resources Group, and Jennifer Easton from the BART Art Program. The slide represents many of the titles that we were able to give away. One of the most rewarding aspects of the One City, One Book campaign is our generous book distribution. We had many titles and many representing, including children's books. This year, we provided a Maya Angelou library to community members, SFUSD high schools, event attendees, and presenters, distributing over 2,000 books. We hosted book clubs at 4 locations, including a partnership with Lighthouse for the Blind and Visually Impaired, with the Talking Books and Braille Center, which also included a special Spanish language edition, expanding access even further, celebrating I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings with inclusivity and community engagement. Massive, massive promotion goes into this event. We met just when the last One City, One Book end. Jamie and Ellen and I meet weekly, developing everything. It is big, extensive planning. Coordinating events, book distribution, and outreach. Banners go up at every single location, A-frame signage, our large-scale poster there on the Grove Street entrance, custom brochures with a reading guide, and curated book lists inspired by Angelou. This year we had a special highlight, a beautiful design tote bag inspired by I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, featuring a quote, "Just like moons and like suns, with certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise." I wanted to share this one beautiful picture that was used at the Echoes of Maya. This is Amiri Baraka and Maya Angelou dancing at the Schoenberg Center for Research in Black Culture. The floor there is a cosmogram. Under the floor is Langston Hughes' ashes. This scene invites reflection on how poetry and performance can celebrate culture, heritage, affirm identity, and connect with the past, present, and future voices. So I want to thank you all for your time, and I know the 20th One City, One Book is going to be huge and exciting. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anissa. Well done. You've set an incredibly high bar for your successor, and I want to thank you and Alejandro and all the staff for helping us to realize our new vision, mission, and our strategic priorities to be a cultural amplifier and a community catalyzer. And that concludes the City Librarian's Report.
Well, once again, it did not fail to inspire us and to engage us and to learn more about what happens behind the scenes here at the library in so many different ways. So thank you for those wonderful presentations. We're going to start with public comment on the City Librarian's Report. So public comment here in Corrett Auditorium is now open.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Thank you very much for the presentations and the very interesting programs that you have mentioned. As I have sometimes said, I'm also concerned very often with what hasn't been emphasized or even presented or discussed, and that is what's the library doing with respect to a whole range of what I would consider to be current affairs, politics, social situations, democracy, and so on. We rarely seem to hear about or deal in programs or in reading lists and so on with things like climate change, current politics, health system and health issues in America and worldwide, the healthcare system, for example, homelessness, immigration, technology, for example, impacts, issues, and regulation, for example, what might be needed, or what is happening in other places, including other countries. Some kind of media critique. We hear about media a lot, and we have a lot of very problematic concerns with respect to what people know and how they know it. And I think it would be very useful to have some serious looks at and discussions about material that's available about media and things that you can present, bring up, and have presentations on. There's plenty of media in San Francisco. Some print, some not print, some both. I did want to bring up something that came up recently. That is, there's at least one program next month that looks very interesting, but there's RSVP and ticketing required. The ticketing apparently has been turned over to another agency so that you can't just ask a librarian if you're in the building for, can you provide a ticket or two for this interesting event. Instead, you're told you have to go online. And of course, when you go online, you also have to have a library card or some kind of entry. You have to have an email address. You have to, then they ask you some questions, your phone number, your name. Where's the privacy here? Where is the confidentiality of what people are doing at the library and those kinds of concepts? What's your gender? What's your age? Other demographic questions are included. I think that's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment? Seeing there's no further public comment on the City Librarian's Report, public comments now closed, and we will now move on to comments and questions from the commissioners, and I'm going to begin with Commissioner Ono.
Thank you, Alejandro and Anissa. It's always entertaining to have you guys here. But one of the things that amazes me is I learn something, more than one thing, every time I come to this meeting, especially during the City Librarian's Report. So I appreciate all that you guys do. Please let your teams know. And I know One City, One Book, we have a great representative. Commissioner Mall has been, and Commissioner Wolf have been on those committees, so I want to thank them too. But tell your entire team and your entire team, Michael, that during the holidays I get a little misty, so I appreciate everything you guys do and keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Owen.
Just to say, I think you are telling our teams that, and I think they all appreciate hearing that from you. And it is not just us, and for recognizing, like, First Person and One City, One Book is an entire system from custodial, facilities, security. You all have been to some of those big programs. It takes everyone, so we appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Mall.
I think that the presentations were both excellent. Alejandro, I haven't been to the programs that you're describing, but I have been to some of the One City, One Books about Maya Angelou, and I think that unveiling, what did you say was September 9th or something?
Yeah, 19th.
Was literally one of the best days I've ever had in San Francisco. I mean, the programming, the people, the feeling, the connection between her work and the library and everything that she stood for. I mean, it just gives me chills to talk about it. And I have seen a few people walk around with their bags, which makes me very proud. And I was part of the original 19 years ago, One City, One Book. And I'm very pleased and proud that it is still in existence. And thank you, Anissa, for all the work that you did with our past books. Connie and I we read prodigiously. We didn't have to read so much with this year because
we got to pass on this one.
Yeah.
But I'm gearing up for the next one.
Get ready.
But we would read, many, many books to decide what the final choice was. And I just think that this is a stellar program. And I love that there's so much publicity. I actually would like more publicity because I think even though this has been going on for 19 years, people still don't all know about this program. They really don't. Bless you. The only little teeny criticism I have is I would have hoped that more than 300 copies of the book went to San Francisco Unified School District students. I was hoping, I think one of the original concepts of the One City, One Book was that it just would be plastered all over the high schools, and especially a book like this.
Yeah, thank you.
That all the high school junior English classes would be reading it or something.
It is a very popular high school book, so I think it was already readily available to high school students. This year, certain high schools selected if they wanted to choose in and opt in, so it wasn't as many, you're right, but we still got a few high schools. And in the past campaigns, I'd also host events at the high schools, so that also was missing from this one.
Yes, because there was no author.
Right.
That's true. But I think somebody should talk to SFUSD administration and not make it optional that the high schools buy in or they don't buy in. I mean, come on, we're one city, one book, and I don't even know who the superintendent of schools is anymore.
Maria Sue. We have a great relationship with her, so
Okay, well, maybe you could talk to her.
we have high hopes now.
Yeah. And you could just relay that somebody, at least on the commission, would like all the high schools to be involved.
I'm just going to jump in because Susan invited me to serve on the committee, and it's just been it's my favorite book club I've ever been part of, right? Because we're reading so many books. But the joy is that if you don't really like the book, and I won't tell you which ones they are, you don't have to finish them, and you kind of feel okay about it because you're like, oh, okay, I don't have to finish this. But I just want to thank Susan for including me in it several years ago, and I do think it has I think there's more potential with it moving forward, but Anissa, you raised the bar in a really significant way, and I think there's more to go, but you took us from a certain place and moved us really, really far. I do think that there's a reason why we usually do it with living authors,
Yeah.
is because it adds a very different dimension than this year. I think we did this because we had such a great opportunity, given the sculpture. But I do think that it's really important to go with a living author, because that's what students connect with, and that's what they can really, I mean, I just think about that. So that's going to be exciting, and I'm getting ready to start reading again. Reading books for this. I read all the time, but I'll read for this. So just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for Anissa for bringing it up to a certain level, and I really look forward to, in its 20th year and moving forward, what we can do with it to really make it something that more people know about. I mean, the Corette's always filled for these events, so that's not a problem. But I think just getting more conversation about these ideas out there, and these authors are all pretty much local that we've worked with. They're treasures, and they need to be known by more people. So thank you.
I will say to that connection with Ear Hustle in the high schools was really just mind-blowing, in that it's really touching, because the public doesn't know about these connections that we make with the high schools. It's really private, it's not publicized, it's really intimate and amazing. And I will say too that we are trying to get this campaign back to a yearly, still coming back from COVID, so it's nice to have this one that we got on target, so hopefully 20, you two will get it on target for next time.
If I could just say one more thing, in relation to the budget conversation that we had, Maureen, of course, we would like this to be more pronounced and splashed all over the city next year, but with the budget being what it is, maybe this is an example of other things that could be rejiggered, but not cut back on this program. I'm sure other people have that same thought about their programs.
That is for sure.
No,
Promotion
it's not.
is expensive.
And this could be maybe a combination of a public and a private enterprise.
Further comments? I think we heard a lot, saw a lot, and I think everyone's really looking forward to having a little bit of a break from the public programs, and I mean, from the staff, like doing it all. I think the public is, the community, I think, is looking forward to a vacation where they actually can go to the library and enjoy all the resources, and as we hit the shortest day of the year, and nothing better than reading a book, curling up and reading a book. So thank you very much for your presentations, and thank you to, yes, it takes a village. These programs require everybody in the branches, here in the main library, the behind-the-scenes staff, as well as those who are developing the program. So we thank you, and we thank the Friends for their support of all of these public programs. So thank you. We will now move to item number 5, which is to review the commission meeting schedule for the coming year. We will open this up for public comment before having discussion and possible action from the commission. Public comment is now open.
I heard that.
Are you showing the meeting schedule? Thank you. Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. We've said this before, and we've say it again. If you care to serve the public in the most participatory way, I think that you would want to have meetings, as other places do, not during business hours, which might suit some people who are working, but not working at the library, but not so much folks who are working, who are going to school, and so on. There are places that have city hall meetings starting, for example, at 7 o'clock. I'm not suggesting quite that late, but you used to have later start times. And I think that a even slightly later start time would be useful for folks who are in those situations, and there are a lot of those folks. So other than that, excuse me, this is basically the same schedule as it has been for years. And again, I would only propose you to consider the public, who seems to be very rarely here other than myself. And that's a pity. I think it would be nice to have more public participation, and I think that you would have it if you had start times that were more accommodating to what the public generally is considered to be available for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Thank you. I just think it's essential, looking at the calendar, that the 2 meetings in February, so Mike can share his insight, would be essential, because I think the more transparency we have when we're looking at these things is much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment? Hearing there's no further public comment is now closed, and we turn this over to the Commission for discussion and possible action. Just want to, in reviewing this, thank you, Margot, for putting this together. Just reminding people that in February, we always schedule 2 meetings. We always have the first meeting, and if everything gets resolved, then we don't have the second meeting. And this year, because Juneteenth happens on the day that we normally have our commission, we will not be having a commission meeting in the month of June. So I just wanted to point that out for clarity for this discussion. Do I have would someone like to make a motion?
I move we accept the schedule for 2025.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Mall and a second from Commissioner Lomax-Garducci to approve the 2025 commission meeting schedule.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Vice President Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
Commissioner Mall?
Aye.
Commissioner Lomax-Garducci?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. We're going to now move to item number 6, but before doing so, I just wanted to make a quick comment from Commissioner Lopez, who has just indicated to me that she had planned to be here, but there was a situation at San Francisco State that's resolved, and she was not able to attend the meeting, and she's listening.
locked down.
So we just want to say thank you to Commissioner Lopez for trying to get here, and her seat's at the table here, but I know she's listening, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Okay, item number 6 is the election of 2025 commission officers. This agenda item is the discussion and action to nominate and elect library commission officers, the president and the vice president for the 2025 calendar year. We do this annually. It is an annual appointment. So we will begin with public comment before our commission discussion and action on this item. Public comment is now open.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. It seems to me that there ought to be nominations, and the public ought to have an opportunity to comment on the existing nominations, as well as suggest additional nominations, rather than having to leave it completely wide open as to who the public might be commenting on. I certainly hope that you have multiple nominees, and I hope that you have folks who have been active and questioning and particularly listening to the public. We have, over the years, spoken a lot about a lot of things, but some of them were not only important, but they were things that the Library Commission listened to, or in some cases ended up doing or having to do anyway. We opposed, along with EFF and ACLU, RFID. The Library Commission did not agree with that, but the supervisors did. And so for 2 years running, they rejected funding for that. And it took another 15 or so years or more, sorry. It took another 15 or more years for that to come around again. We were concerned about fees. You wanted initially to have $1,000 for a lost or damaged laptop, $500 for a tablet. Our comments, I think, caused you to pause and end up cutting that in half. I see a nod. With respect to fines, we were very distressed that there was not going to be any kind of remission or dismissal of existing fines. The Commission did not take a vote on that and instead came back with one line added to the proposed legislation, which was not only to stop charging late fines, but also to take off of the existing books those who had pending late fines. So you have had good suggestions, some of which you've heard and some of which you haven't. It seems to me there is a need for that, listening to the public, deciding on particular things, and I'll leave it at that. I think some of you are much more responsive to public comment and concerned with public comment. I would certainly recommend as president, the current one or...
Thank you very much. Any further public comment on this agenda item? Seeing there's no further public comment is now closed on item number 6, and I will now turn over to the commission. So in a moment, there's a process, and I just want to review the process with everybody because it's a very specific process. I will call for nominations for the election of the 2025 officers. These nominations will be for the commission president and the commission vice president. Please be advised that procedurally, no second is required for the nominations. A simple majority will elect the president and the vice president. Each commissioner will have the opportunity to vote, even on a nomination in which they may be the nominee. So the first candidate to receive a majority of votes is elected and serves in the role beginning January 2025. So in other words, they'll make a nomination, and then if there's a second nomination, then we'll go and start voting until there's majority. So the first candidate to receive a majority of the votes is elected and serves in the role beginning January 2025. There is no need to continue voting on additional nominations for president once a nominee receives 4 or more votes. Commissioners vote on the nominations in the order the nominations are received. Does everyone understand? I feel like this is like doing the Pope. That's like the smoke signals. There's smoke.
Yeah.
It's its own thing. So it's its own thing. So we're going to start with nominations for president. Are there any commissioners who would like to make a nomination?
I will do so.
Commissioner Mall.
I'd like to maybe renominate, I don't remember last year, President Connie Wolf. I think she's done a great job this year, and I think Connie is particularly capable, suited, amenable to working with the staff in a really significant way. And I don't know if I should say she or you, or I don't know how to say this. I feel like we're in very good hands with Connie's leadership, and I've been impressed that she's put in the time to really meet with many of the staff, members of the commission, and she's very hands-on in terms of leadership. This isn't, she's not phoning this in. I think it's really become part of her life. And I think it's made a difference to all of us and our commitment to the library. So I nominate Connie.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Seeing that there are no further nominations, the nominations for the president are closed, and we will now commence with voting on the nomination in the order in which they were received. There has just been one.
I'll take the roll call for the nomination of Connie Wolf for Commission President. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Vice President Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
Commissioner Mall?
Aye.
Commissioner Lomax-Giraduzzi?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
Connie Wolf is our 2025 Commission President.
Yay.
Thank you. It's an honor to be serving with all of you. I feel really fortunate. We're a really great group. Dr. Lopez, if you're listening, you're with us. And I just feel like we're a really great commission. We bring so many different perspectives, and I really learn from each one of you, and I'm really honored to serve. And I especially am honored to serve with City Librarian Michael Lambert and the entire staff here at the San Francisco Public Library. And I'm very excited about the new city administration and how the library can really be a catalyst for serving San Francisco and its citizens in new and really wonderful ways. So thank you. So now we will now move to nominations for the 2025 Library Commission Vice President. Again, a simple majority elects the vice president. Each commissioner will have the opportunity to vote, even for a nomination in which they may be the nominee. There is no need to continue voting on additional nominations once a nominee receives 4 or more votes. At this time, are there any commissioners who would like to make a motion for vice president? I call on Commissioner Bolander.
I'd like to nominate for Vice President Pete Wong, Vice President Pete Wong. Been a fantastic leader. I know a partner for you as well. I like the way he thinks, and I think he brings a great perspective to the commission among all of us. So it'd be great to see him for this next year. A lot of change and a lot of things that we're going to need to work on, and I think this next administration is going to be going to find his leadership and your leadership very valuable as we lead the way, I think, especially with leadership of Michael and the staff. I mean, we are the beacon on the hill, for lack of a better word, when it comes to this sort of stuff, and both of your leadership is great, but I nominate Vice President Pete Wong.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations for vice president? Seeing that there are no further nominations, nominations for vice president are closed, and we'll now commence with voting for commission vice president.
I'll take the roll call for the nomination of Pete Wong for Commission Vice President. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Vice President Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
Commissioner Mall?
Aye.
Commissioner Lomax-Giraduzzi?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
Pete Wong is our 2025 Commission Vice President.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Bolander, for the kind words. It means a lot coming from you. I learn a lot from you every time we talk about anything really library-related or otherwise. I just wanted to quickly say it's an absolute privilege to continue to be associated with this institution and all the people involved, my fellow commissioners, the leadership, staff, the friends, everyone who makes the library what it is. Like Connie said, I learn from each one of you every single time. I feel like every time we have a discussion as a group, we just illuminate such interesting points given our own respective experiences. And frankly, that adds a lot to my life, and I would be missing a whole lot if I didn't get to do this with you. So I'm looking forward to this next year and continuing to serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thanks again to the fellow commissioners. There are two previous past presidents, Commissioner Lomax Scaraducci and Commissioner Ono, and Susan Mall has been the previous vice president. So we all have had some opportunities to serve, but I think this is just, we're a really cohesive group. I feel really great. And yet we don't all think the same way, which is what makes it so wonderful. So onward ho to a really wonderful, end a great year and start the new year. I think we might need our seatbelts a little bit next year, but I really look forward to that. And so with that, we move to our final agenda item, which is adjournment. And so this is adjourning for, and Teresa's got her headdress ready. But this is a moment to adjourn for 2024. We've had a great year and really looking forward to the year ahead. So before we adjourn, we will open for public comment, and public comment is now open.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. So I see that Commissioner Ono is wearing a headdress. I'm not sure that I understand the reference, reindeer or what? Maybe I need a pair of glasses. Reindeer. Yeah, reindeer, okay. Thank you. There's a creative wish, I suppose, for everybody, and appreciate that. As I've said before, I would also appreciate if you wouldn't adjourn before you insist that the agendas have, typically at the end, as you used to do, and as many commissions still do, that you not adjourn until you insist on having an item on the agenda that expresses what you would like in future meetings to be taken up for discussion or votes. Commissioner Mall actually described something that I think is quite a milestone. And if you need to have round numbers, it sounds like 20 is coming up soon. And it seems that maybe there should be taken up some of her thoughts about One City, One Book. And thank you for the historical update. But you all have your own intelligences and talents and experiences and abilities, and I think it would be using them more if you were to have an item like that on the agenda for what you would like on future agendas. As I understand from the bylaws, basically the agendas are made up by the president and the city librarian. And that's it, formally speaking, from your bylaws. I think having an item like that on the agenda, as I said, you used to have it and many have it still in other parts of the city and certainly elsewhere. I think it would enrich your whole program and your whole ability to function as a policy body for the benefit of the library and, of course, for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment on the adjournment of today's meeting, the last meeting of 2024 for the Library Commission? Seeing there's no further public comment, it is now closed. And we will now move this to the commission discussion and action. Do we have a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I move that we adjourn our last meeting of this calendar year.
I second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Lomax Scaraducci and a second from Commissioner Ono to adjourn today's meeting, the last one of 2024 for the San Francisco Public Library Commission after a banner year.
Okay, and I will take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Mall. Aye. Commissioner Lomax Scaraducci.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
the meeting, the motion passes unanimously. Surprise. And the meeting is adjourned. We wish everybody a very healthy, happy, joyful holiday season ahead. Great wishes for 2025 and the new year. And thank you again for your ongoing support. And thank you to the entire San Francisco Public Library staff for what they do each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you.